And we are recording. Hey guys, welcome back. It's March 25th. Wow, like 1/3 of the year is already over. That's crazy.
I know.
Oh, wow. So, I'm not sure where we want to take this call today, but first of all, some acknowledgements to the team from Western Canada who did a phenomenal Seiko Kai this past weekend. Excellent job. All really great content. Good. I love the fact that everybody's picking these diverse subjects and honing in on them because it creates interesting content and relevant content that doesn't necessarily repeat but expands on the storyline. So well done, great job, Maggie, leading the team, and Paul, your presentation as well. All excellent stuff. Let's see. So if you took advantage of Seiko Kai, hopefully you had members of your own team there. So we want to give just a thought to the whole concept of Seiko Kai because it is a business meeting, a success meeting by definition, the name Seiko Kai. And the goal of this meeting is to have a reason to gather once a month around Nikken and the Nikken business versus the Nikken products. It's the idea of cultivating the Nikken field and the Nikken field leadership. So I was on Leo's call earlier and I was talking about if you guys are participating in the weekly presentations that Jeff is hosting, Happy Life, Balanced Life, Happy Life meetings, that are using the PowerPoint that I'd put together for that presentation, which culminates in 3 options as how somebody can participate in Nikken. And the first is obvious, customer, and that is for the wellness enthusiast. The second is consultant, and that is for the wellness activist or promoter, advocate. But the third is as a partner, which is the community builder. And that's what this call focuses on. It's on the development of the community, building the community. And the monthly calls that happen with Nikken is to take it to the level of Nikken nationwide in North America, our market unit. So these calls are necessary to establish the community and create culture in the community, create awareness in the community, grow the strength and the understanding of the community and the role that it can play as both the community as individuals when you take it back to your local area. So I just want you to consider that Seiko Kai is sacred. It is something that needs to be in your calendar as a must attend event. It's all too convenient to avoid or to replace it with an event that has you, out and about in town. I know that's often the case, is that people compete with, competing ideas or competing events where you could have been somewhere else physically. And because the Seiko Kai is an online event, you can be in your pajamas and be on it invisible. It doesn't require much from you to attend, unfortunately. You would probably get a lot more out of it if it was mandatory requirement and you had to pay to attend. I mean, so you see the value I'm trying to present here is that the value is there, but it's so undervalued, maybe underappreciated because of its ease to access. But you can't underestimate its value and its importance for creating culture and community. What I would like to encourage you to do around Seiko Kai is to actually hold a hybrid event. We talked about this earlier in the year. We had a chance to actually witness it if you were on the Seiko Kai where I was in Montreal and Laval, and we were having a live event there, and then we used the Seiko Kai as part of the content of that live event. Not unlike the pink collagen launch that we did, where what tied us all together and created a real sense of community and a real happening that was going on in North America was when Nikken invited different sites to come on live and show to the audiences who were paying attention or a part of this that it was an ongoing live event taking place internationally in many, many cities around North America. You can't underestimate the value of something like that. So I would like to encourage you as a rule, as a community builder, that you start building your community around the Seikokai. You start building your activity around that event. You have what I did, a very inexpensive sandwich, cookies, coffee, pie mag water thing. And you can charge maybe 10, I think we did $10 or $20. I can't remember what it was. It wasn't much. But it was a nominal cost. But it gave people an excuse, okay, we'll come and have a bite, we'll sit together, we'll watch this thing and participate in this. And then you can have activities around it. You can pick up on the storyline, maybe have an opening or a closing segment, call to action where your team is concerned. But it literally creates a reason to get together where the content is being beamed into your living room, and it's great content, as you witnessed this past weekend. It's really good and relevant content. So I want to encourage you to start that in your agenda, that the next Seikokai, which is April 20th, is not going to be something that you just participate by sitting in your pajamas invisible, but you actually have an event, whether it's in your home, your living room, like the product launch, or you find a location depending on the size of your audience, or maybe gather up a few of you that are scattered in Chicago or wherever, and have a community event where there's your program for the event. Part of your program is just simply paying respects and participating in the Seikokai. That is effective use of your time, and it's a business building strategy because it's a community building strategy. So really make note and underscore that point, because I think unless we do that, we're not going to grow this community. This call hasn't grown in numbers. Have you noticed? One of the challenges that we have in Nikken right now is everybody's sitting on their hands. And I'm being straight up with you. I get to be on a lot of calls that you guys don't get to be on, that are very high level strategic calls, and we pay attention to the numbers. The numbers are the business, and it tells us whether we're going in the right direction or not. And one of the things that I can tell you from my perspective and just simply observation is that we're not growing the way we promised ourselves we would. And that means we can put all the best content together in the world, but if there's no new audience to pay attention to it, if nobody new joins us as a consequence of what we're doing the wrong thing. We're focused on the wrong thing. We're entertaining each other, and that's not okay. We need to be growing an audience, or we're not in business to be in business. We're more like a cult, just hanging out with each other because we like each other. We need to be growing. Growth is what determines whether or not we're viable. Growth is what determines whether or not we're worth people joining and investing their time and energy. So I want to challenge you to really tackle whatever it is that's holding you back from growing. And if you think it's whatever you think it is, maybe you need to put that on the table here, because I think one of the things that I love about what my daughter Sophia does is she's very transparent. If you've ever plugged into any of her social media stuff, it's scarily transparent. Especially as her father. It's like I'm biting my teeth half the time. But she has attracted an audience of people who are like that. They're very transparent, and it's through that they've been able to actually grow. And she's cultivating growth and developing their businesses through that the idea that they can be vulnerable, transparent, because then you can really address whatever it is that's holding you back. Leo, you spent, tell us a little bit about those 3 days that you spent, would you, just this last few days?
Hi, everybody. Yes, I'm spent the training with Bob Proctor about the paradigm, how you shift your paradigm. I follow 3 time mics. I recorded. I by record 3 days, again and again, 3 times. I finished today for the change of paradigm. Very great,
Can
great.
I ask you why did you invest the time in that?
Why I need that because if I'm not Royal Diamond yet, I have something I'm blocking.
Okay, that's a great comment. I love that. If I'm not a Royal Diamond yet, it's because I've somehow stopped myself, blocked myself.
And I like what you said a few years about self-built.
Oh, the seatbelt story. I was saying a paradigm is like a seatbelt on your mind. It's like you just can't get you try and move and you just it stops you from moving.
And I very understand. That's why it's black meat about my paradigm. You say that's why I'm not Royal Diamond yet. And he said decision, dream big, and repeat every day affirmation, read. That's what I did. You see, why American morning every day. But I need to learn more to my thermostat. I don't know in English the same thing. Thermostat. Thermostat.
Yes.
C'est la même affaire, that one.
Wait,
I have to be
thermostat.
more hot. Don't scare to be Royal Diamond before end of the year, this year. And
Yeah, we're in the same boat, Leo, so I know exactly what you're dealing with.
That's good. You guys should team up then, because if you really are, then you can help each other keep each other on point.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I just find a new Bob Proctor in French, imagine. You speak French. Okay,
Sorry, just coming around.
and that's I shared to my group this morning to my and I said today before you leave, Mike, I said, listen this video in French, very nice explication, but in French, to how to change your paradigm. You can read, you can have to motivation, you can do everything, but if you don't change your paradigm, that's my problem. That's why I understand I have to shift my to change it. That's why I listen for training three times this week.
Okay, that's amazing, Leo, because you're never you we need the refresher. We need to peel the layers off every now and then. And we've come through a very big time in mankind's history, this whole spiritual battle that's taking place both out there in the public and within the minds of people. This great awakening that is really causing us to have to become introspective about who we are, what we're doing here. And what you said about paradigm decision, the first thing that you said was decision. You said dream big, and then there's the daily activities or affirmations, things that you do, the repeat. That's the only way. Bob said there's only 2 ways to shift a paradigm. Shock. You can either shock the system. I don't think anybody here wants one of those ones. You don't want to be, on death's doorstep, and you're like shocked into a near-death experience, or Barbara, I'm going to mute you, or you just avert death by whatever, or family crisis, health crisis. It's usually a shock of some kind that causes a paradigm shift. Or if you want to be on purpose about it, mature about it, divine about it, what you do is you become somebody who conscientiously chooses an alternative, chooses an alternate reality, and then by that decision, then starts to abide by that decision. You become the person, you abide by that decision, you become and act in the manner that's consistent with that decision. And that's requires a daily regimen, a daily MO, DMO, a daily method of operation. It requires a commitment to a daily something. How many of you, first of all, I can tell you right now, because I already know, how many of you are on collagen?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Not everybody is, Paul. It seems very obvious
Oh.
that it's not everybody is. It seems obvious that everybody would be, especially after the hoo-ha that we made of the product, of the whole product and the launch and everything. But you would be
Except that it's not
shocked,
kosher.
except that it's not kosher. But you would be shocked for whatever reason that not everybody's using it. And you would think the leaders of the tribe would be using it. It's not happening.
I couldn't
So,
get my hand up fast enough. Count me in. That's Nancy.
okay, Nancy. I'm not putting you guys on trial. I'm just saying, as somebody who is really minding my business, which means I pay attention to the numbers, I pay attention to the activities, the actions, and I do that for a reason, because I'm motivated by success. I'm motivated by helping others to achieve success. That's what drives me. My life is not going to be transformed by the success of any individual on this call. But your life could be transformed and can transform the lives of others. If anything I've done in the way of contributing to your awakening to your role and your ability to achieve success, if there's anything that I've handed down from what was handed to me or what I've learned on my own, has contributed to you, then I'm doing my job. This is my purpose. This is what fuels me. I'll give you an example. I was #1 in North America for the product launch. Now, let me ask you this question. Do you want your Royal Diamond, one of your top income earners, who's built a legacy, built a business, to be #1? Is that what you want? Or is there not a #1 out there that should be the next #1 or taking the reins and leading the charge? You see what I'm saying? So in one way, it's great to be recognized, but in the other way, the role that I've been playing is it sucks to be recognized as #1. I would have rather it be anybody but me. I was just setting a standard, but I hate the fact that the standard I set was #1. I would have rather somebody else beat my pants off, and that would have been a real success. That I set a pace, but somebody outpaced me, or maybe many of you did. That would have been a success story. So I want you to understand my point of view on this is that I appreciate being recognized, but it's bittersweet, because I would have rather it be you. I would have rather you guys were the success story, the MVPs, the PPPs, and all the stuff that Nikken's broadcasting out there. I want to be somebody who's in the game, but not leading the pack. Because that means the one who has I really don't have a reason to do that from a financial point of view. I do it from the point of view of being a leader, to say, hey, I haven't sat on my hands. I'm not leaning back in my chair and saying, you minions go to work and do it. I'm proving to you that it can be done by doing it myself. Right? That's what you want in a leader, but you don't want your leader to be #1. You don't want that person to be #1. You want to be #1. I want you to be #1. So I'm giving you some I don't know it's not words of wisdom. It's just sort of a realistic understanding of, what's really happening. And I'm saying why I'm bringing up the paradigm issue is because when I set out to do the product launch, like when I set out to launch my Nikken business back in 1992, I didn't set out to try it I didn't set out to hope that I would succeed. I set out and I started acting like a person who had every reason and intention to succeed. And I wasn't the only one who joined Nikken in 1992. In Canada, there were hundreds of people at the first Humans Being More. So I wasn't the first. I mean, you guys call me the first, but there were many signed on the same day, if not before me, that joined Nikken in Canada, as an example. But what was the differentiator between me and them? And here we are 33 plus years later. What was the differentiator? We have 33 years to look upon. What separated me from them?
Action.
What was it?
Action.
Yeah, for sure. Action.
And
But what
focus.
compelled the action?
Focus, determination, and the action.
Focus,
You made the
determination, the
decision
action.
to do the business, and then you did what you had to do to bring it together.
I made a decision to succeed, not to do. There's a lot of people doing. Who's succeeding? I made a decision to succeed. And that meant I had to become someone who understood what that looked like, what that meant, and what the actions and activities of that were. I had to acquire that. I wasn't born with that knowledge. I had to acquire that. But I acquired specialized knowledge because what I was specializing in is the success. So I went to the success. I went to who was successful. I learned from the successful. I replicated what they did and some. Reed Nelson's first month in Nikken was 125,000? Something like that, 120. The actual number eludes me right now, but it was something along that line, and he had made 25,000. So that was on my whiteboard. My whiteboard, that was my goal. Mike DiMuccio, a guy who made $29,500 that year as an electrician, set a goal to make $25,000 his first month. By what right? By what right would I have to do that?
You just decided to do it.
That's all, Paul. By the right that I have the right to decide whatever I want. And therefore aspire to make that so. And I acquired
You believed
no,
you could do it.
Barbara, no, I didn't. Belief is something we acquire from experience. I had no experience. Belief is
you have a belief in
belief is what's
yourself?
belief is the problem with this call. Belief is the problem with everybody on this call. You believe your story, and your story is informing your actions, and your actions are inconsistent with what I'm talking about, which is a level of success you've not yet attained. I'm talking about breaking through the wall, the paradigm of your belief, by moving out of belief and moving into what really informs the future. Faith has nothing to do with belief. Zero. Belief is the past. Faith is the future. Faith is in the unknown, the uncertain, but it's certain in your trust of it. Faith is where the paradigms get broken, because the paradigms are the beliefs that hold you to what you believe to be, which is a condition of what you are. It's a reflection of the past. I'm talking about doing what's not been done. Even for you in Nikken, it's about breaking through the status quo. And it started with the decision. By what right did I have to make a decision to earn $25,000 my first month? I just decided it. Somebody else did it. And I figured, it's like the 4-minute mile. Somebody ran 4 minutes. And it wasn't until that somebody did the 4-minute mile that it became commonplace for people to do 4 minutes. Until then, doctors said it was physically impossible. That tells you how much doctors know about anything. They have an opinion about everything. So it's not what they believe that matters. It's what's possible that matters to the future. It's what informs the future and those who will govern the future, who will lead the future. And so where does the decision come from? It comes from whatever you desire. I had a desire to do 25. Did I do it? No. I did 15,000. Tell me, how many of you did $15,000 in a new business you've never been in for the first month? By what right? It wasn't because I was a master at anything. It's just because I made a decision and then began to actually act like somebody who was following through on that decision. And it's amazing what happens when you start to act like somebody who's actually going to attain an objective. You start attaining stuff. You start acquiring knowledge. You start acquiring skills. You start attracting people because your language changes, your energy changes, your disposition changes, your focus changes. What comes to you, what you perceive changes. It's all based on who are you being. And if the first thing is decision, then make a decision different than the one you make every day, which is to maintain or to hold on to, which is a position of I'm holding on to what I've got for dear life, for fear that I might lose it, versus I'm going for what I really want for dear life because it's so worth my life. One's going to
So it
provide
affects-
you with energy on another level. Yes, Paul.
It affects everything about your conversations, your demeanor, everything about you when that decision is
Everything.
made.
Who you speak to, how you speak with them, how they perceive you, how they perceive what you're talking about. It informs the entire universe of you. So I wrote this down. I was on a call a few weeks ago that my daughter was hosting on the organization she's building, the online community she's building. And this gal, Shar is her name, who's in Bali, who was at the time a single mom, decided she was pregnant. She was traveling. She got pregnant in Bali and she decided she was going to be a nomad. She was going to be a digital nomad, figure out somehow to live traveling with a child and make it, figure it out, work it out, whatever. Talk about faith. Holy smokes. Anyway, her story is amazing. She's earning 6 figures. She has an online business. She swore she would never wear shoes. She doesn't wear shoes. She lives on a beach. Her daughter, and it's a great story. And I love the story. Anyway, one of the things that she talked about was sharing some of her insights that she shares with her clients about how they can, grow their business. Well, one of the things that she coined this phrase, POOR, P-O-O-R, passing over opportunities repeatedly. That's a good one. Right? I'll give an example. Passing over opportunities repeatedly. Like Seiko Guy this past weekend was an opportunity. Was it passed over? Was it really fully implied? Did you work it? Did you leverage it? Did you really get the most out of it? That's a question. She talked about the story that I'm telling myself is, so a lot of people tell themselves a story. And she said, one of the things she teaches their clients is to say the words to themselves, quote, and I quote, "The story that I'm telling myself is," because when you hear yourself repeat those words and then utter the story, you're distancing yourself from the story. You are not the story. You don't own the story. The story is not you. It's the story you are telling yourself. That's kind of like the paradigm. The story I'm telling myself is Nikken is hard, or whatever it is. You actually say it out loud. The story I'm telling myself is. That creates a gap between you and the story. That's an important gap because it's a separation from your conscious state of being and your potential. And then it creates a space that you can then identify and reframe. You can identify and reframe the situation because you separate yourself. So the story I'm telling myself is I can't attend because I can't use Nikken products because. Okay, create the space. I think it's important that we accept that that's a story we're telling ourselves for whatever reason. And it's not an identity you hold. Now, here's another one. This one I want to underline because it has everything to do with this call. Imagine this thing, Nikken, was paying you $1,000 a day. I want you to imagine Nikken is paying you $1,000 a day. For me, that would be a terrible day, but it would still be a day. Imagine Nikken was paying you $1,000 a day. How would you show up for it? So that's a really interesting question, because could Nikken pay you $1,000 a day? Is
Yes.
Nikken the source of your income?
It could be. Well, it
Nikken
is now.
Nikken
Yeah.
is definitely the means by which money is coming to you, but is it the source?
Oh, no. The source is God.
Yes, Paul, thank you. Bob Proctor taught me that there's only one source. There's only ever going to be one source. How that source rewards you, how it comes to you through the means it comes to you is multiple, but there is only one source. And what governs the flow of that source?
Well, ask and you shall receive.
So who governs the source? If the source and the supply is infinite and you're receiving a very finite amount, it's
Oh,
by
then
who?
I guess we govern how much we
Yes.
get.
So if you are the source, the governor of the source is only one, and it's an infinite source and it's an infinite supply. Nikken is the means. It's just a mechanism. Why I make what I make and why you make what you make is not because of Nikken. That's just the mechanism. It's the source, and our connection to the source and how we let that source flow through us is what governs the amount that's flowing. So if you want to increase the amount that's flowing to you, you've got to increase the amount that's flowing through you. Which means you got to get out of the way. What's in the way is your ego, your story, your paradigm. That's the valve. And if you can open that valve right up, where you have no ties to any of it, it's just a completely open valve where you can flow through the goodness through you, then you're going to receive the return through how you receive the return. But the source is only one, and what governs the flow that's going through you is you, because the source and the supply is infinite. So here we are living a human existence, but we're living within, quote unquote, our means. What the hell does that mean? Is that the story we're telling ourselves? I tell you, when I joined and I made a decision, and by the way, when Bob Proctor met me, I was $68,000 a month. That was my check. That was the check. I sat down at his dining room table, and the first thing he asked me, the first question this guy asked me, the nerve of him to ask me this question, was, how much did you make last month? Now, what I later learned about it wasn't an ego trip. It was just simply his way of measuring the flow through me. It was his way of understanding the consciousness in front of him. The connection, the relationship that I had to money was a strong indicator of the relationship that I had to source. So when I told him it was $68,000, he was, good, that's good. He was impressed, which meant I had something to offer. You see what I'm saying? So I'm talking about really coming back to this question. Let's come back to this question. Imagine Nikken was paying you $1,000 a day. How would you show up for it? Now, what do you think is going to happen? Nikken's going to pay you $1,000 a day and then you show up? Is that how it works?
No,
You hope for 1,000, you wish for 1,000, you pray for 1,000, and when it shows up, then you're going to be the person who's worthy of 1,000? Is that how it works? Because it sure sounds like most people think that's the way it works. If I were to actually evaluate the way they live their lives on a daily basis, I'd be guessing most people hope and wish and pray. And yet we were actually taught how to do that. Whatever you ask for and pray for, ask as though you have received them, you shall receive them. And we already talked about how would you act as if you had already received something? How would you speak if you had already received something? What would there be to say? What would be there to hope for? There's nothing to hope for if you've already received it. Hope is an illusion. You either have received it or you haven't. But if you're hoping to receive it, then you've not claimed it. Therefore, you shall not have it. Like the instructions to how the game is played, I think are so black and white. It absolutely stuns me that that I have to keep repeating it. That it's so simple to play this game. But what made it so hard was the conditioning of your mind. You have been brainwashed since you were born to believe lies, outright and outrageous lies about the world you live in, about how it works. And you're being bombarded every day, 30,000 times a day, no less, of how it works according to whoever are the taskmasters of the day. When you know the source, there's only one, and it is above. As above, so below. It comes from above to and through you. So you're the gatekeeper of what flows to and through you. And how you open the valve, how you break the paradigm, the very first thing you must do is make a conscious choice, which is a decision. So when you make a decision that Nikken is going to pay you $1,000 a day, and you show up like the person who's earning $1,000 a day, don't be surprised when the flow starts to trickle in a little bit more every day. And all of a sudden, it can be like a rush, which is often quite how it happens. It's like a buildup. It's like there's this span of time. It's almost cruel, but it's true. It's like God says, not sure if I really believe you yet. Prove to me that you really say what you mean. I'm going to just hold this flow back a little bit. Just let's see how serious you are. And that's when you find out what you're made of. Do you really believe? Do you really have faith? Do you really have faith and trust? Faith is another word for trust. Do you trust that if you operate according to the law that's been written, that has overruled every human law ever created, if you operate according to God's law, do you trust that God will fulfill the promise, that the law is true? Because I can tell who trusts and who doesn't. You can hear it in the language they use, in the words they use. And when you become somebody who is very conscientious about those choices of words and how we show up, you start to really make sense of the way things have panned out for people. And I really want this group, this community that I'm building, to be conscious creators. I want you to be part of the next world, which is imminent. We are weeks, maybe months away from miracles, but those miracles aren't going to come to the people who have doubt. They're going to come to the people who have demonstrated through faith that they understand and apply. They're not waiting for something to happen. They're making it happen. They're part of the process. They're co-creating that reality. That's the second coming, my friends. Anyway, I didn't want this to be a theological conversation, but getting back to the basics, which is, how do you show up when you're making 1,000 a day for the thing that you care about and you're passionate about? How does it inform you? And if you just looked at maybe the last week, what would have been different about this last week? What appointments maybe would you have kept? What would you have made? You know, how would you have participated in them, etc.? I just really think it's important for you to really be worthy, self-worthy of abundance. And it's all this mumbo jumbo that you bought into and you're stuck with, and you start to believe your own stories and the stories that you're told, that you can't, or it can't be, or, you know, good for Mike, lucky him. Luck? Really? As Bob would say, a word we invented to explain the effects of unknown causes, but causes there are. So, any thoughts about what we're talking about? I know this is a heavy subject, but it's really a good one every now and then.
No, I like it. How did you get to be the kind of person at 27 where you said, I'm doing it? Like there has to be antecedents to this.
Yeah. That's a great question. Thanks for asking that, Paul, because I told a story with the French Canadian group earlier tonight. So I remember this visually in my mind quite vividly, actually. I remember as a kid, I don't know, I was maybe in my early teens. And me and my mom, we would tease each other, whatever. Anyway, I remember her being in the kitchen near the stove. Maybe she was cooking. And you know those tea towels that you have on the stove?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had one of those tea towels in my hand and I was snapping at her, snapping at her rear and, teasing her that way. And she was jumping and, making a fuss. And anyway, I was toying. And I remember she was saying some stuff, but something she said led me to say to her, don't worry, one day I'm going to be a millionaire. And I meant it. I mean, it was like there was no fog and there was no wishful thinking in that statement. It wasn't like I was hoping to be. It was just, don't worry, one day I'm going to be a millionaire. It's like a matter of fact. And her reaction, which of course what would you expect? Italian woman, hard, English is not her first language. Italian is. Moves to a foreign country, raising a family, pretty much a housewife. What does she say? Yeah, sure, okay. That kind of a reaction. And obviously demonstrating that it wasn't something she believed. Maybe she had hoped or wished for me or whatever, but it wasn't really something within her context of belief, especially not for herself. But for me, that I wasn't tainted by that because it was irrelevant to me. For me, it was just a matter of fact. So start with that premise. Mike is wired in a way that he knows financially he will be a millionaire, and the means of which is not known to him at that time, but the knowledge of it is. So it's a knowing. I'm not operating in a hope or a wish or a prayer. I'm acting as if it's a knowing, it's an understanding, it's an awareness, as though that is a matter of fact. So would it surprise you that eventually I would say yes to the right opportunity, not knowing if it was the right opportunity, but someone who was open to opportunity? So I had said yes. I had been saying yes to possibilities and opportunities. Nikken was one of those yeses. So I'm wired to succeed conscientiously. In school, same thing. I was always good at everything. Didn't matter what I applied myself to because I was wired that way, that I was striving to be the best at what I could be at whatever it is that I was applying myself to: math, physics, chemistry, biology, French, you name it. Whatever it was, I was teacher's pet. Why? Because I was born for excellence. I wasn't born for mediocrity. I could never exist in mediocrity. Put me anywhere in the world, I will rise above the mediocrity because I'm wired that way. Why? How? God knows. All I know is Nikken was a means. What was so beautiful about the marriage to Nikken as the fulfillment of the promise is that everything that Nikken holds in its value system aligns with my highest values. Freedom, health, prosperity, abundance for all, a way of sharing. It's not something I hoard, it's something I share. The knowledge, the ability, the means, all of that is something I have, I can share. I don't have to hoard. So I never had to build my rock by pushing others down or on others. It was by the support and raising of others. So it's perfectly aligned with all of my internal wiring, which made me feel alive and continues to fund me mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So I feel it's a perfect conduit of divine intervention, if you will. And then what will be, will be. Obviously, others were inspired and took flight. I can't take credit for what they in turn did because many have joined and quit under my tutelage. It wasn't me. It wasn't Nikken. What determines what they're going to do at the source is them. Each individual. And I'm here every now and then trying to brush off the dust and remind you of who your source of power and strength is. And that what limits it is you. And not Nikken, and not the products, and not society, and not the economy. None of that stuff matters. None of it. People are going to make more money this year than they've ever made in their entire life. Doesn't matter what war or what famine is happening. I don't know if you've noticed this, but that's the way of the world. You create your own reality in spite of what the reality is for others. So you can grow in abundance, or you can grow, or you can be limited by poverty consciousness. But it is a choice when you have been informed. There's no, once you've been, what's the word? Once you've been educated, there's no excuse for stupid. you know what I mean? Like once you got the info, there's no excuse, except it was a choice. And so I'm looking to build this community of conscious creators, leaders, people who will influence others with the same words, with the same ideas. Through your own life experience, you'll be able to transfer and transmit to others by virtue of your being and your actions. So I would like you to consider showing up for $1,000 a day. Because number one, I believe you're worth it. And you don't have to do anything to be worth it, by the way. What makes you worth it is you were created by the Creator. That's what makes you worth everything. So we don't have to earn that right. What we have to do is simply become a conduit of the flow and allow the flow through us to be a conduit of the good and to not be in the way of it, to get ourselves out of the way of it, to get our ego out of the way of it, to get our story out of the way of it. Barbara.
Hey, Mike, I'm actually moving, but I wanted to say, because this has been a great call, the most tremendous question or outrageous question you asked is, what would you have done differently if you were earning that $1,000 a day? And I think that, I have a lot of excuses, yada, yada, I'm moving, da, 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 da. And I think I would have had more of a priority to get people on that Seiko Kai, to get people to the pink parties. I did, because of moving, I ended up just reaching out to others and in my downline to make sure they were going to have a pink party. And the, for lack of a better word, the young or rookie people we collaborated, we put two together to have their own pink party. And you know what? They each had a guest. So they had three guests at this event. And to me, it was a little bit out of the box. Sorry, I'm at a store. But anyway, I just wanted to say that I think there's some chewing on that of what's going to change. Or I used to say this to my kids, and I don't know that they always liked it, but if we're upping the ante, what is that? What does that look like? And how are we going to play? And how are we going to continue to have, people coming for the collagen parties or the gatherings, and to impact their lives and to have their vision? And what questions can we ask to have them join the team or be an influencer? And I think that was a brilliant question you asked, and I didn't want it to just go slide by. So
Thank
thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you. If I asked everybody on this call and I had a lie detector test, I said, how many of you believe you could make $1,000 a day with Nikken? Most of you would hope or wish, and you would respond, the words you would choose would be coming from that vibration, that frequency. And I could test that. So if we go by what we believe, we're screwed every time, because what we believe is prejudiced by everything that insults our intelligence and our mindfulness to the creator that created us. Our belief is so incapacitated by what's possible. It's not there. There's almost no point in relying on it. We've got to go with a bigger story, a bigger picture, the truth, which is connected to a living expression of creation. It's not a dead expression. The creator didn't create and then said, see you later, good luck. Creation is in process. Every single cell in your body is in the process of creation right now. Every atom is being bound by the force that binds it, which is a force. Because if you break an atom, you see the release of power. It's huge. So what's informing that atom to be an atom? It's an energy that's ever present and ever operating. You are being informed. The expression of your physicality right now is expressed. It's information that's being expressed. It's not something that happened to, I'm the product of my genetics. Bullshit, you are. Epigenetics has proven that that's not true. You are manifesting your body as we speak. You are co-creating your physicality and your disease or your health. Wow, that's a hard one to swallow. No, it isn't if you know the truth. Wow. So chew on that one a little bit. The truth of the matter is we are creating our reality. And when we become one with that consciousness and we become a co-creator and we start expressing goodness, health, vitality, prosperity, abundance, and not coming from a place of hoarding or a place of fear or, anxiety, then those are all the negatives. Those are all the expressions that lead to disintegration. Remember this chart? I don't know if you remember this one. On one side is all the good, it's the body's the body, the process is the process. It works the same way, whether you're going at it from the right or the left, the positive or the negative. The process is the process. What you're putting into it determines what the output is. So the system of creation applies to everybody the same way. The factors that affect what the output is what the input is. Paul.
Yeah, here's my specific thing. I'm not so interested in whether the money comes, whether it's 1,000 or 10,000. What I really do care about is that it come through Nikken somehow. There's something about Nikken to me that's very special, and making money through other means is not as interesting to me. And I don't know if that maybe is holding me back or what, but that's just where I am.
Paul, is there a demonstration anywhere that Nikken can pay $1,000 a day that you're familiar with, that you're aware of?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not a function of Nikken. It's not whether Nikken can make that happen. It's not Nikken that makes it happen in the first place. Nikken facilitates the process, and it's already doing it for others. So you could be one of those others. So Nikken is not in question. It's not maybe,
Right.
could it be? No, Nikken is proven. So it's a vehicle. What determines the flow? What determines the abundance? Who's writing the check? You are.
Me, yeah.
You're writing the check. That's what I'm saying. You're writing the check. Now, what does it look like to show up as $1,000 a day earner in Nikken? I'll tell you what it looks like. You got 38 people in your living room on Pink Day.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like to show up as a person who's earning that kind of money and more. That's what I'm talking about. Show up. Be the person who's worthy of that and understanding that you're worthy of that by way of how you're demonstrating. I don't decide whether you're worthy of that. You are by virtue of who you are. You decide what you're worthy. You decide the check you're going to write. And then show up as the person who's earning that check according to what you think is worth. Do you think a person who's making $1,000 a day doesn't make any calls?
No, they have
No.
to.
So clearly they know that they should be making some calls. Now, how many calls? How many appointments? How many events would they be hosting or entertaining or you know what I'm saying? Like, you start writing the script from your personal experience and an observation of what $1,000 a day looks like for you. Now, if I was a guy making $10,000 a day, what $1,000 a day might look like for me may be different than what $1,000 a day looks like for you. But I'd be writing the script according to what I understand $1,000 a day to be for me, knowing what 10,000 a day looks like. See what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So maybe I'm pushing the gas at 10%, you're pushing it at 90% to accomplish the same output. But my 10%, your 90% at the end of the day results in the same result. It's how much flow have I got through? How much of God's consciousness is flowing through me effortlessly is what determines that output. You might have to overcome a bunch of obstacles. You might have to work harder at it. Maybe you've got 10 more books in you to read before you're there. You know what I'm saying? What's the
Yeah.
work that you have to do on you every day to keep that conduit open or to pry it open to even begin with? Leo just spent 3 days with Bob Proctor, repeated 3 times. Why? Because he's trying to open that valve. He's turning the valve to open it up some more because he knows where it's at wasn't enough to be where he wants to be. If you come and see my library, you'll see books upon books. And you'll say, you've read these? Yep. Some of them I study, not just read. And so how did I learn to articulate what I'm probably from all the reading and from being in the, the likes of people like Bob and others. I'm articulating what I've learned, but I've sat hours on airplanes in waiting rooms and whatever, reading. My car for years was my library. I played back recordings of tons of recordings because I used that time to learn, to acquire understanding from the points of view of others. So there's hours and hours and hours and hours of time that I have invested in opening the valve. And then getting to a point where I understood it well enough to know I had the right to open it. Everybody has the right to open it. I can open it as wide as I want. That the only thing that determines my worth is me. There's no punishment from a ruler. I'm not ruled by any being, divine or otherwise. Nope. I'm in harmony with, I'm aligned with but I am not subservient to. That is not the condition of my existence. So I don't pay tribute to a creator that is an oppressor. I'm a co-creator. How do you treat your child? You think about it. If you really love your child, what do you want for them? The best. What do you offer them? Everything. What would you hold back from them? Nothing. So it's 10. End of the call. I don't know how this call is going to hit you. If you have some comments about it, when I set the playback for people to watch, I'd appreciate your comments if they're positive. I hope they are. But if there was something that you heard here that is reverberating in you, share it in the comment. You know, there's how many of us here? There's 18 people on the call, including me. There's at least 300 people in the chat that may or may not listen to this call because they won't commit an hour of their time to listen to it because they don't know if it's worth it. So I'm asking you you've invested your hour. If you think it's worth others to invest their hour, please advise them to do so if this call was meaningful to you. So thank you for joining and thank you for putting up with my lecture. Yes, Leo, comment? Oh, saying goodbye. Okay, everybody, we're almost at the end of March, end of the first quarter. Make it a good one. We got this amazing special going on right now for sleep systems. I'm running a little contest with my team. We've already had one sleep system sold yesterday. So go for it, guys. This is what I believe personally. It is the one product of all products that is the quintessential must-have. Your body's electrical system is everything. If it fails, doesn't matter what else is going on, everything else fails. So invest in your electrical system. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Michael, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. April 1st is the kickoff call.
Amen to that.